Hello again and welcome to Lesson 12. In this lesson we're going to look at some detail now as to how to make up some very nice musical, meaningful phrases on the G major pentatonic, playing it along the neck. Now, starting with one octave of the G major pentatonic along the neck that I showed you in the previous lesson, we will start making up some phrases. Now here's the one octave of the scale. As you can see, it's a very short scale, made up of 5 tones, but when you're soloing with it, all you have to do is really just play very simplistic repetitions between the various notes in the scale, something like this. So really all you're doing is shuffling back and forth between this note and this note. Again, some nice 2-note little repetitions, possibly a slide for effect, a few more repetitions. Again, back and forth between the 2 notes in the scale on those 2 strings. And don't forget, while you're doing these 2-note repetitions, to double up on some of the notes, like this. For effect. Now, once you've mastered being able to play those 2-note repetitions, the next challenge is to be able to try and solo over the chords. Now, you will find that as the chords change, they're moving along in a progression, the appropriate note that you end your phrases on has to match that chord. Remember, we called that a chord note. Now, let's take a look in some detail as to how that's done. Now, I'm going to attempt to explain the process. Once again, I'm going to be doing little slides and back and forth notes between the various notes in the scale, but you will hear that I'm going to try and aim to land on the appropriate chord note to match the chords that are being played underneath. Here we go. Don't forget, when you're practicing what I've just shown you with the downloaded MP3 of the chord progression, make sure that when you're doing those little 2-note repetitions between the notes, that every now and again you pause or you stop on a note to create a musical phrase. And just listen very carefully to see if the note you stop on seems to make musical sense. If you end on a passing note, of course, it'll sound rather like the phrase was incomplete. So you just have to develop your hearing and your audio abilities at making sure that you land on the right chord note. Let's take a look at the next octave along the neck. I'm at the 5th fret on the 4th string with my first finger, and if you recall, it moves along 2 steps, then across a string to the 3rd string, along again, and then across to the 2nd. And now what we're going to do is we're going to throw in a bend at the 10th fret on the 2nd string. And while the bend is held up to pitch, we're going to put our little finger on the same fret on the 1st string and play that, so we create this rather pretty musical harmony. And we can drop that back. Now, the techniques of bending up, holding a string while playing another, of course, are covered in detail in the other lead course. But here we go. We're going to use that. It gives us quite a nice, almost country rock flavor. Let's take a look close up now at how what I've just shown you with that scale will sound over the backing chords. Here we go. What we're going to do in this next little sequence is to continue along the neck, to the 15th fret, where we will be playing the pentatonic then across the neck. Let's take a look at this one. Now, I'm at the 8th fret on the 2nd string, which is a G, and we're going along now to the 10th fret, which we can either slide another step down to the 12th, or as an alternative we can bend and pitch that note, which would have been played at the 12th. And then from there, once again, 8th fret, slide along, we'll just do a slide for now, and then onto the 10th fret, 1st string, then the 12th, and then finally we push further along the neck to the 15th fret, where of course we join the pentatonic scale in G, going across the neck. Let's listen to it now. Up to this point, we've been looking at the major pentatonic along the neck from the lower strings in this position along down here. We're going to take a look at how to play the scale going this way. Now, of course, it's the same set of notes, but some of the fingering can present some awkward problems. Let's take a look. Now, coming down from the 15th fret, which is the high G, you can either switch to your first finger at the 12th and then move your first back, or another way of fingering would be to go 3rd finger and then 3rd finger back and then your first finger at the 10th. So we either have that or, and then continuing along, of course, we go here across the neck, down again to the 1st finger and slide that back, or once again 3rd finger moves back instead of the 1st moving back. And at this point I'd like to say that until you get totally and utterly familiar with the pattern itself, it's very easy to suddenly go across the neck when in fact you were supposed to go down. So you end up with like that sound, and you can hear that's a sour note in terms of it not being in the scale. So always be very aware of when it's time to go along the neck as opposed to across. So here we go again. From the very top, we go 3, I'll go 3, 1, these are the fingers I'm calling out, 3, 3, 1, and now it's time to go across, and now it's time to go along, like that. Now, of course, as you practice the scale descending, that is going from the high strings down to the low strings, you will find that you will make the odd mistake where instead of going along the neck, you suddenly accidentally go across the neck. But again, the more you practice it, the more familiar you will become with the pattern. Now, let's take a look at some other little fancy things we can do with the scale when we're descending. Here we go, following the same fingering as before, we'll go from the 15th fret, 3rd finger, we'll move that back, then we go 1st finger, and then we go to the 3rd finger here, 12th fret, and then we can flatten out and play that 1st string at the 12th fret. So we have, and then we can lift up onto the fingertip and hit the 2nd string again, and then back to the 1st string here. So what we're doing is we're maximizing the number of notes we can hit in the scale as we're going this way or descending. Again. And then we'll continue sliding along from the 12th fret, 2nd string, to the 10th. So it's the same idea as those little 2-note repetitions in the scale. Again. And continuing along now, 9th fret, 3rd string. I'm doing a pull-off for a little bit of effect there, from the 9th to the 7th. And then flattening out, back to the 3rd string, slide from the 9th on the 4th, again the slide creates a nice little effect, 5th fret, back, 7th fret now. Now notice I'm crossing over with my middle finger to the 5th string, back to the 4th, back to the 5th string with the middle finger, and I'm setting up a nice little pattern of repetitions. Now I'm going to demonstrate for you in a second how that sounds with the backing track. Playing those little two-note repetitions descending in the style that I've shown you is rather reminiscent of the early Allman Brothers, so if you do get a chance, try and pick up some of their recordings and listen very carefully. Here we go. Once again, don't forget to practice every day using that scale and using those techniques I've just shown you with the chord progression, and I'm sure you'll do very well.